Hi everyone, welcome to today's live demo of the ASK BOSCO platform. Thank you so much for joining. My name's Aaron and I'll be taking you through the walkthrough today. What we're going to cover in the next 15 to 20 minutes or so is a bit of background on ASK BOSCO and why we've built the platform, and then I'm going to show you the AI Analyst, which is the heart of the product. From there we'll build out dashboards live, look at the reporting suite, and finish with competitive benchmarking, and then I'll open up to Q&A. What I hope you'll take away from this is a world in which getting answers from your marketing data is simple and really just starts from a simple question. If you take that as the sort of the starting point, that's where reporting, insight, and decision making will happen much, much faster. So no looking at static sort of data boards, things that break off, or really trying to look at a graph and understand what it means and what you should do next. So that's really the reason we built this platform. That should help brands, retailers, and agencies understand where to invest their next pound, dollar, or euro of spend, but also how they can grow and how they can scale. The reason that's become such a complex problem is that marketing teams are dealing with too much data spread across platforms. They've got inconsistent numbers or different systems providing the same number, but seemingly coming to different equations. And all of that creates a lack of trust. People using spreadsheets that are owned by different people, and then potentially the damage of wasting money that goes along with rising costs at the same time. So that pressure to deliver efficiency keeps on increasing. What we then see is that, certainly from an ad platform perspective, you're obviously dependent on certain ad platforms for your revenue. That Meta is obviously going to want you to spend more money on Meta, and Google is going to want you to spend more money on Google. And that agnostic advice is missing. So really planning and optimization becomes much slower, and decision-making becomes harder because as a result, you're trying to pass through these two different areas that are still so critical to your business. So that core goal of ASK BOSCO is that centralization of data, make it trusted, make it usable, and make those answers accessible. And that shouldn't just be for analysts or people with lots of data skills, but for a wider marketing team and the business in general. At a high level, think of ASK BOSCO with four foundational pillars. The first is that how can you connect your data? We've got connectors to all major ad platforms with no code, because once your data is centralized, then you can start asking questions about it. That's the second portion then, the AI Analyst. That's natural language questions that you can self-serve answers. Third is then reporting, which is then, if I've got these answers and they're sort of things that I want to ask all the time, or something that other people in my organization should see, then I should have live dashboards that have AI highlights and drill down so that I can ask more questions and get more insights from. And then fourth, competitive benchmarking. So you can really compare how you're performing within your market as well. So we're going to start really with the AI Analyst, because I think once you see how it works, you'll understand why it changes the way that those teams interact with data. And from there, we'll show you how to turn those answers into dashboards and reports. And we'll look at competitive benchmarking to put performance into context. So starting off really here, getting your data into one place is really quite simple. I'm just on the summary tab here. And that's really saying we've got connectors into all these different ad platforms, and it's designed to be easy to integrate. So it's really just simple of a quick click connect, and then once you've got the right sort of permissions, you can then start linking in those different ad platform data points into it. As you go through, you'll see connectors across Google, Meta, TikTok, Microsoft Analytics, GA4, Shopify, as well as CRMs and databases as well. The aim is that instead of data living in those separate tools and separate spreadsheets, it begins to live in one place. And I think most importantly, aligned in a way that is ready for analysis. So you can think of ASK BOSCO as a lightweight data lake, where we can start to really transform your data into a place that it's going to make it easy for you to get answers from. And if you've got certain things that we don't support right now, we will support it in the future. We've got a connector roadmap. So if you have something that you're quite keen on, even if it's quite niche, let us know and we might be able to incorporate that relatively soon. The question that most platforms answer next is then, well, here's a dashboard. So let's actually start with our AI Analyst. This is the fastest route to an answer, and that's just asking the question. So this is the centerpiece of the ASK BOSCO experience. It lets you have a conversation with your data. And our belief is in the next few years, if you're not speaking to that data, you're not really doing things as quickly as you can be. There's going to be, in general, a lot more bottlenecks as a result. And that's because most organizations have had to generate a central data function because changing this data has been so hard, and they've ended up spending lots of time building dashboards, sometimes the ones aren't even necessarily read. And then questions come back from that, and you basically end up having this bottleneck around something that was supposed to be relatively simple and doesn't take you as long as you'd like. So let's start with a really simple question that you might ask in a meeting. What were the top 5 best performing channels last month? What is going to happen now is Ask Bosco is going to interrogate that data set and begin to return the answer. Now, one thing I'll show you here just whilst it's going through there as well is it's starting to look at several different data sets that are included in here and understand which is most important, because there's a whole lot of data that's been transformed already. And so in this example, it's asking, do you want to look at your PPC versus SEO, your paid display, or your paid search? And it's got a level of confidence which is trying to understand what's going on. I'm actually going to say, let's start with paid search. So let's ask it to focus on my top 5 campaigns within paid search, because I'm actually in the PPC team, not in the organic team. Now, as it comes through, it'll also explain what's going on. You can show those details of the code it's writing. This is a great way of making sure that Ask Bosco doesn't hallucinate. So it's still using LLMs underneath the hood, but using it in this way is a way of preventing hallucinations, because it's only able to look at and return the data that is incorporated inside of it. Right now, we're doing just a simple auto mode. You can do a deeper level of deeper research, but we can come to that at a later point as well. So the real power that comes from this when it goes to the visualization is now the top channels by revenue in the last month. And it's looking at PPC, Performance Max, and Shopping as it goes through right now. And it's putting it into the color scheme that I like it to see as well. It'll also then even provide some added key insights to that. So understanding how you should read that information rather than just expecting you to be able to get the information straight away. The thing is, I actually want to go and do something slightly differently. So I'm going to say, show this as a table. Now I've already filtered this to paid channels because I said I was working in the builder here, and now I have it as a table underneath here. And now I want to understand, let's try and get to a ranked view of performance, but I now want to add something to it. So add costs to this chart, because instead of now just focusing on one outcome, I want to understand the level of efficiency. That should then get us to something that's like I can take decisions on, which is really the whole point of Ask Bosco. So I don't want to just understand performance, but I want to understand that performance relative to cost. So we could do that without any spreadsheets, without any exports, without any manual graph building, and then hopefully just through a very simple set of questions, I built something that might actually be useful moving forward as well. So here's that data point, and I can now pin it. So I can actually now just create a new dashboard that can be shared amongst my colleagues. So I'm just going to call this weekly trade view, created the dashboard, and it's pinned to that dashboard. So when I go to it later, I'll be able to jump straight into it and ask more questions and build it out. I can also then ask it to show me how has this looked like year on year or month on month. So how has this changed month on month and year on year? And it's already starting to think about adding ROAS across those different channels and against those different insights as well. So once we have that, we can then start to build out an extra bit. And the next bit I want to then do is then mix in other types of data as well. So now I can see as a month-to-month comparison and what has changed and a year-on-year comparison. So month-to-month we're down, but actually year-on-year our PPC and our Performance Max is up. Cool. Now I'm just going to ask one more question to get another bit to fill out my dashboard. So we want to say, show me website sessions by source for the last 30 days. I could then ask things like, what's our conversion rate by channel? I could do that week over week and pin it to the same dashboard. And really, in the space of a very few minutes, you've gone from having questions to having a live dashboard. I think the beauty of that live dashboard is you can always come back to it, you can share it with other people. Ask Bosco never limits by users. So really, this ability to share that transparency across your entire organization, or even with partners. We have agencies using this. We'll share it directly with the brands that they work with, and brands who are working with agencies sharing it directly with the agencies. Because all of a sudden, you're then starting to be able to have much more impactful conversations around what those data means and what actions we're going to take next to be able to grow through things. So I'm just going to pin this as well. One thing I'll just also finalize here, and as I said, we're in the auto mode here. You can select different data models and different data sets as you go. You can also ask it to do more in-depth insights by analyzing patterns and anomalies across your data. So far we've just used it to build out a dashboard, but now I can say, why has traffic performed this way? And what should I do? And these sorts of wider questions that come through is very impactful in them being able to take straight away from, now I've got a level of transparency and a trust layer across my organization where everyone can see the same insights, to, no, now I'm going to implement some of the things that data tells me that I can do. What you'll see now is it's going to take a little bit longer because it's now conducting a comprehensive analysis, but it's also going to start building out traffic trends and performance patterns from elsewhere in that data set. One thing that's important to recognize there is that that's still not going out into the wider internet. It's just going wider across your data set rather than looking at something specific. So as earlier we were saying, let's just focus on the paid search data set. It now might look at both paid search and organic, etc., and potentially bring it all together into one area in order to get the right recommendations that will help your business. But it's really coming at it from a data perspective rather than making up some ideas around maybe some sort of creative work that you might want to do as well. The other side of this is that it does also take feedback. So over time, it will start to learn your language. If you refer to things in different ways, it will start to make a difference between the concept of, let's say, leads or sales or something. So in this executive summary, we've now seen, surprise, surprise, there's a level of Google dominance in this information. It's looking at traffic trends month on month over the last 6 months, and then looking at a deep dive based on the types of the different messages that I've shown you already, how that's impacted on conversion rate, on device distribution, and how that's changed over the last 6 months across those different channels. It can see that we've reduced ad spend. You can see that we've dropped down shopping campaigns, and it recognizes that we have a mix of inefficiencies. And then we have the ability to create immediate actions over the next 30 days. So rebalance channel budget allocation, activate Bing search campaigns, and optimize the mobile experience, things that I can do over a longer period, and so on. A couple of things around worrying about focusing on what I should be doing. And then as well, I think this is most important, actually expected outcomes. So based on the current sessions, this is where your projected sessions would be and what the change would be. And that creates an ability for you then to be able to set targets. And then giving you a clear setup of the top 3 priorities to do for the next bit. So that's the AI Analyst. You can ask questions, refine and build charts, and then pin them straight into dashboards. It's the fastest way to go from curiosity to something insightful and something that you can share. But now let's look at the reporting suite, because while the AI Analyst is great for those ad hoc questions, you might also then need that structured, repeatable reporting. And those two things work very, very close together. Now, my current report is going to be very, very small, my little weekly trade view. So I'm just going to go to a slightly larger website performance one, which is a little bit built out. So inside reporting, I should say, you get 70 plus best practice live dashboards that come straight out of the box. Those have been built by people who have worked in-house on agency side and client side, so they're really well set up for the sort of questions that marketers get asked. So rather than giving you a generic business intelligence platform, we're giving you dashboards that focus themselves around real workflows, around website performance and channel performance, etc. So in terms of this website performance overview, I can look at a whole variety of things here. I can go to different marketing channels, marketing spends. I can even change the dates, channel types, etc. And all of that will affect itself live. So think of that as a classic sort of BI tool, which is used to you being able to set some filters and get some more data points. So that means, let's say you're looking at different conversion sources, you can update it to get the sort of level of comparison that you want. Now, even here, you might even look at that. I listed this on this earlier, platform discrepancy view. So it's a common challenge that GA4 says one thing and the platform says another, finance says a third thing. So giving teams the ability to view performance through that right lens is critical, but you'll also see things like detailed KPI tracking, tables, and charts. But I think the main thing to take away is this is not a static report. It's really just a starting point. So the starting point really is everything is clickable. So I can look at this spike here in total revenue. I can click it, and I can drill down that data. I could look at it by channel type, campaign type, device, campaign status, year, week number, date segment range. The opportunities really are almost endless there. And then I could go even further. So let's say if I just started doing it by channel, it'll show me that specific point by channel. Email is obviously big here as well, so I can then filter down that by device. So when we talk about that sort of like, I guess, limitless level of curiosity, you really can follow your nose without necessarily needing a data person to go, how do I find this, or getting stuck. It's very, very easy to navigate and stop producing reporting and actually getting to those decisions. I think a second point is that very, very common in this sort of scenario is that you then also want to look at it over a longer period. We can see here that conversion rate increased over the last month, so I can now run a change analysis. That means it's going to summarize the drivers behind the change. So things that contributed most to that. It won't always be a single clause here. So you can see this is doing it by channel. Paid other has had by far the biggest impact on conversion rate over the course of the last month. What's interesting is it's had a 33% drop, although overall the conversion rate has increased. So these small little impacts here by shopping and email have actually had a bigger correlation to what's going on. But the beauty is that can also be drilled down into. So I can analyze shopping, and it will go into further detail around what's going on there as well. If I then go to AI highlights, this is a feature that instead of asking you to interpret the data, maybe you don't do this straight the way through AI Analyst, but it's actually doing it through just picking out outliers in the data itself already. So what this is showing you is what's changed across the main areas of this dashboard. So traffic, costs, conversions, and revenue are all down. I think the important thing to note here is that those are expected changes. So they are in line with the data set that we're looking at already. So a very, very common example is we see conversions, impressions, everything rise much higher as people go into peak, and as soon as they come off, let's say into something like January, things drop down. And so what it's telling you here is, yes, these things are going down, but this is expected. And actually, what's quite positive here is that there is no unexpected changes. So it will start to draw your eye to different metrics or different KPIs where actually this is something that needs to be looked at in a little bit more detail. And you need to start maybe getting some of a feeling. It could actually end up saying your last month conversions were out of the expected changes, and that's where you want to focus. The best bit about that then is that you can then ask Bosco and go straight into asking those points as well. So why were conversions poor in Feb, and what should I do? Now, we know the data here is actually that this was working relatively well. So it might end up saying, actually, conversion rates were up. But the idea here is that your reporting process becomes, check the dashboard, generate highlights, sanity check, and then you're ready to go into deeper questions, whether that's preparing for internal meetings or having that conversation as you go through as well. We can also then really customize reports as well. So if you want to build things straight from scratch, you can do that really, really nice and easily as it goes through. And if you're technically minded, you can really sort of change anything of the customization around this as well. So colors, logos, notes, etc. Can all be built into this so that you've got a good view of what's going on there. The final piece I want to show you, just instead of us waiting for this to finish, is our competitor benchmarking. So this gives you directional context. So your performance numbers tell your own story, but where you sit in the market, your category, and how you're comparing to your peers is also going to be super important. And we can do that across paid search, SEO, other marketing, and website health. You can define the competitors that you track against across this side here. And you can start to monitor over a period of time how those competitors have moved across our different scoring sets. This is particularly useful for agencies, we find, because you can put client results into a market context, but also on your own idea, you start to get a feel for what things should I be changing? What are my best competitors in different areas? And what are some of the steps and easy steps I can take to start to improve the score so that I can recognize that if I'm changing my performance, is it reflecting in the way that I sit against my peers as well? That is Ask Bosco in a nutshell. Just to recap what we covered, we've connected and aligned your marketing data in one place with no code. You can use the AI analyst to ask questions in plain English and self-serve answers. You can pin those answers straight into dashboards and build reportings from those conversations, and then use our best practice dashboards to report quickly. If you'd like, the best next step is a little bit more detailed demo, but also right now I'm very happy to take any more questions. Thanks.